Hello and welcome into the Lockdown Wolves podcast. This is the post-game podcast. Today on the show, we will break down the Wolves' loss to the Blazers, their second loss to Portland in the last 3 nights, last 2 games, last 3 days. What happened? How did Damian Lillard drop tie a career high in terms of three-pointers made in this game? What happened to the Wolves' defense? What went wrong overall? And who am I most concerned about in terms of individual players on the Wolves? We'll break it all down here on the show. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. Happy Tuesday, everybody. This is unfortunately not a victory Tuesday. The Wolves fell to the Blazers for the second time in a row on Monday night. We'll break the whole thing down. A lot to get to with this one. First of all, though, a big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can find this show. You can also watch it on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. More great local sports coverage 24/7, and it's absolutely free. Again, download the Locked On Sports Minnesota app today on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Also, a reminder, you can follow on Twitter at Locked On T-Wolves and at Beecken, and that's with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. All right, so I don't want to go full sky is falling here. We've only done that a couple times this year. We're not there right now, but this was disappointing. So post-game pod, usually what I'll do number one takeaway here. So first I'm going to do like a little bit of a not 10,000 foot. We'll call it a 5,000 foot, like not quite pulling the fire alarm, not quite skies falling, like all those analogies. But I want to do a little bit of that. And then the rest of my first takeaway. And then I have a couple more we'll get to here in a minute, including who I'm most concerned about on the Wolves roster right now in terms of consistency, etc. And then we'll get to individual studs and duds as we always do. So let's start with the almost existential crisis. And that is the fact that we're right back to talking about effort. Marty Gellner and I talked in the live postcast that we do just about 45 minutes following the game. It's deja vu all over again, right? I mean, we're now 27 games in, and we hadn't talked about effort in like a week and a half or so. And here we are talking about effort again. And, you know, I have a full understanding. Like I've watched the NBA before. I'm not one of these get off my lawn NBA fans. Like I get it. You're not going to have a team 100% of the guys 100% of the time play 100% of their effort 82 nights out of the year. That's not going to happen. But through 27 games, if I can count on, I guess, 2 hands, maybe the number of games where it's like, okay, I felt good about that effort for the Wolves. Actually, Saturday was one of them, right? Like Saturday was just a loss. And I said as much on Monday's show, the postcast Saturday, Monday show, like sometimes you just lose. That happened Saturday. There was nothing like concerning about Saturday's game to me other than, well, we'll talk about perimeter defense. But like, it just, you know, like Portland's got a good offense. Lillard and Simons went nuts on Saturday. That happens. Friday was a great win over Utah, right? There's been some of these mixed in. I can count on one hand the number of like really comfortable wins we've had this season, right? The Pacers games, both of them. The Lakers game way back, like second week of the season. The Jazz game Friday. I mean, that's 4 right there. There's maybe 1 or 2 more. So 5 or 6 total like wins that you feel really good about this season. Besides that, we've talked about effort an awful lot on this show. And when I say effort, like, you know, transition defense would be one of the common places that you see a lack of effort. Off-ball defense, attentiveness there, fighting through screens on defense, 50-50 balls / rebounding in general. All areas the Wolves have been very hot and cold and mostly cold so far this season, and all areas that they really struggled in against the Blazers on Monday. So, like, yeah, it's a bit of a Groundhog Day thing. Like, we're now talking this is effectively a third of the way through the season. Actually, almost exactly a third of the way through the season now. Like, this is 33%, 34% of the games. And we're talking about a team that only shows up to play hard, I don't know, maybe half the time. Is that where we're at? I don't know. Like, that's where we're at. I don't know how else to say that. In terms of X's and O's, the number one problem in this game on Monday against the Blazers was absolutely perimeter defense. I mean, yikes. Like, part of this is Dame being Dame. Like, this guy's, likely Hall of Famer, unbelievable offensive player, no doubt. And he went nuts in this game. He tied his career high with 11 threes. He had 8 in the first half, finished with 38 and 3/4, didn't see the floor in the fourth, and would have set his career high in threes. Phenomenal shooting night. Was pulling from anywhere he wanted on the floor. The only shots he missed were heat checks, basically, and he made some of those. Like, it became a point where, like, every shot was effectively a heat check for Dame, and he was making most of them. Unbelievable player, unbelievable night. And Saturday was, I think, more a function of, because Dame didn't shoot the ball great Saturday and Simons was fine, but they combined to be like, what was it, like 8 of 25 or something from 3 on Saturday. So, like, they shot the ball okay, or 8 of 23 maybe together from outside the arc. But it was more about Lillard going 15 of 15 at the free throw line on Saturday. This game, they combined to shoot one free throw. Damian Lillard shot one free throw in this game because it was all about the three-pointers. Lillard shot 17 threes, made 11 of them in this game. And some of this was him being really good. Like, a couple of those, he had a hand in his face. Some of them were legit, like 34-footers, right, from the logo on the side of the court. Like, that's a real thing. It was happening. There's only so much you could do about that. However, in general, the Timberwolves' perimeter defense was miserable in this game. Some of those came off of drive and kick opportunities where the Wolves defense got pulled in. He had one where he was wide open in the right corner I think it was the third quarter. Like, ridiculously open. The closest player was Naz Reid, and it was because Jaden McDaniels was guarding Lillard, was also the low man. The Wolves got beat on I forget who was actually the point of attack defender, who I should be calling out, got beat on the opposite wing. McDaniels had to step up, and Naz did not X out to the corner to be anywhere in the same area code as Damian Lillard. And Lillard, of course, knocked down the wide open corner three because he was making contested threes all game. That was an example of lack of attentiveness, lack of, there was no crispness there, very sloppy, very elementary defense where they weren't making that second and third reactionary read. Just wasn't happening. But it was also because of the lack of initial point of attack defense on that left wing. I don't even remember who the Portland player was that got the dribble penetration. It was probably Josh Hart or Anthony Simons, but the perimeter defense, like, name a perimeter player from Minnesota and they did not play well defensively. I thought Kyle Anderson had some okay moments. He's maybe the only one. He was too slow to guard Dame, right? He had the size. But, like, overall, Jaden McDaniels had a pretty horrific game. Now, I will admit, like, I will concede, I think is maybe a better word, that it's not an easy assignment to do what Jaden McDaniels does night in and night out. But there were possessions where he just needed to be in Lillard's jersey. The Wolves needed to be more physical with Damian Lillard. Pablo Prigioni said this. Wolves assistant coach said this at the after halftime interview with Katie Storm on Bally Sports North. Like, they had to be more physical with him. And the refs, like, there weren't that many whistles in this game. Portland only shot 2 more free throws than the Wolves. We'll talk about free throw shooting from the Wolves' perspective here in a little bit. But again, Lillard and Simons combined to attempt 1 free throw. So, like, the Wolves needed to be more physical. And Jaden McDaniels, of all people, he only committed 1 foul in 28 minutes in this game. What does that tell you about how physical the Wolves were being with Damian Lillard? Jaden McDaniels fouls out much quicker than that, often, or ends up with 5 fouls in a game, right? That didn't happen in this game. He was not physical enough. He was not aggressive enough. The Wolves were not fighting through ball screens. Continues to be a massive issue. Point of attack defense. They miss a bigger body defender like Taurean Prince, who's a okay individual defender, but a very good team defender. They miss that element. They need Ant to play harder. They need D'Lo to consistently play hard defensively. I think overall it's improved over his Timberwolves career. Austin Rivers has to be better when he gets on the floor. Jalen Noel has to be better defensively. All those things went awry in this game. for the Wolves. I have a couple more takeaways about things that did not go well for Minnesota. We'll see if we can find any silver linings. So we'll get to all that here next. First, though, today's episode of Locked On Wolves is presented by our friends over at PrizePicks. If you had taken Rudy Gobert over on rebounds in this game, Wolves Blazers, you would have been in good shape. We haven't talked about Rudy yet. He had 20 boards in this one, I believe. Yeah, 20 boards in this one. If you'd taken Dame 3-pointers made, I guarantee you would have made out really nicely on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a really fun. You pick 2 to 6 players, whether they'll score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. And it's not simply just points, rebounds, assists. Like I said, you could do 3-pointers made. You could do steals, turnovers, etc. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry, and it's not against other people that you're competing. It's just you versus the projections available. It's a ton of fun. You can also cross sport. So, like, for instance, Monday Night Football was on Monday. You could have taken, I don't remember who is playing now, Arizona. You could have taken, like, James Conner rushing yards over and Rudy Gobert rebounds over. You probably would have been in pretty good shape. And again, cross sports, any sport, NHL, college sports, the whole thing. You can make your entries in less than 60 seconds. It's really easy. Just simply download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, they'll give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 with PrizePicks. Thanks again for making Locked On Wolves your first listen today. Now, for your second listen, go check out the Locked On Sports Today show. From the games that matter the most, the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, other takeaways from this one. Let's talk real quick about free throw shooting because, this ended up being a blowout, right? They lost by 21, the Wolves did, but this was a 10-point game late in the third, and I want to break that down in a second. The Wolves shot 10 of 19 from the free throw line. They started, I believe, 1 of 6 at the line. It's just miserable. And like 2 a person. Kyle Anderson made his 2 free throw attempts. Everybody else that attempted a free throw missed at least 1 free throw. Let's call them out. Let's call them all out. It was 2 of 6 at the free throw line, which is just insane. D'Lo was 2 of 3. Rudy Gobert was 0 for 1. Nas 1 for 2. Jalen Noel 3 for 5. Guys that typically make their free throws. Jalen Noel missing free throws. 10 of 19 as a team, 52.6%. They left, 9 points at the line there. They made 6 less free throws than Portland, who attempted a couple more and shot a higher clip at the line. So, again, they lost by 21. It's not why they lost, but the game would have been a lot closer before things fell apart in the late third, early fourth quarter. It would have been a lot closer had they made their free throws early, right? That was a huge issue in this game. Let's talk about that third quarter. The Wolves were down. It was double digits for most of the third quarter. Like it was as many as, 14, I think. 15, actually, I think was the most they trailed by early in the third quarter. They got it down to 10 with, let's see, how much time was left? I lost it. Like 4 minutes. Yeah, 4.5 minutes left in the third quarter. The Wolves got it to within 10. They had like 3 straight possessions with steals. Ant made a couple of threes, which was like his only signs of life. We'll talk more about Ant. And then Jalen Noel got a steal, made a bucket in transition. The Wolves pulled it within 10. Chauncey Billups, the Blazers call a timeout. They come right back out. Josh Hart 3. Noel counters with a 2. Justice Winslow 3. Justice Winslow's not the guy you're too worried about there. Then Ant gets blocked at the rim. And then Jeremy Grant makes a 3. So you get this quick 9-2 run that then balloons into what I think ended up being like a 16-2 run. 16-2 run. And then the Wolves close out the quarter. It ends up being a 22-point deficit going to the fourth quarter. It just completely snowballed. 10 points to 22 points in 4.5 minutes. And it was, again, a lack of ability or complete absence of any ability to guard the 3-point line for the Wolves was kind of what happened there late in the third. And along with that, rebounding. as the Wolves were actually causing Portland to commit a bunch of turnovers, they just completely got beat on the glass, right? Like they couldn't put Portland away. They gave up 11 offensive rebounds. And so the second chance points, second chance opportunities was another issue in this game that led to some of the snowballing late third, early fourth quarter. The Wolves gave up 11 offensive rebounds on Saturday to Portland. They did the same thing Monday. Overall, they were a minus 17 on the glass Saturday against Portland. Guess what they were Monday? A minus 17. Portland, who's a very middle of the pack at best rebounding team, Yusuf Nurkic got 16 rebounds, and nobody else in the Blazers had more than 7, but the Blazers had one player with 6 rebounds and 2 with 7. Guess how many players the Wolves had with more than 4 rebounds in this game? 1. They had one player with more than 4 rebounds. Rudy Gobert had 20 rebounds for the Wolves. Naz Reid off the bench had 4. Nobody else had more than 3. Or another way to say it, the non-Rudy starters for Minnesota combined for 7 rebounds. The starters. Jaden McDaniels, 1 rebound in 28 minutes. Kyle Anderson, 1 in 28 minutes. D'Angelo Russell, 3 rebounds in 30 minutes. 3 times as many as Kyle Anderson or Jaden McDaniels. Anthony Edwards had 2 rebounds in 33 minutes. Led the team in minutes, had 2 rebounds in the entire game. The Wolves had out-rebounded a couple of teams last week that they should have out-rebounded. And I think I don't know if they were feeling good about themselves in that area or not. I was feeling a little bit better about it because they were at least competing. We talked on this show, Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards are the 2 players I call out the most because of their size, their athleticism, frankly, their basketball IQ. These guys know what they're doing on the floor. Why aren't the Wolves getting more defensive rebounds? Why are they not limiting second chance opportunities better? It's infuriating, and that was a major issue again in this game for the Wolves. 3-point shooting, last takeaway. Portland made 21 3-pointers. The Wolves attempted 27 3-pointers. Portland made 11 more 3-pointers than the Timberwolves did. Do the math at home. That's a 33-point deficit just in 3-point shots. Add in the 6 at the free throw line. Doesn't matter what you shoot on 2-pointers. If you're spotting them 33 points outside the arc and 6 at the line, it's a 39-point hole, guys. The Wolves shot just under 50% from the field. Steady diet of Jalen Noel 2s in the lane. And, early in the game, it was D'Lo just killing the Blazers drop pick and roll coverage, pulling up from, 16, 18 feet and knocking down mid-rangers. Great. That's fantastic. But if you can't stop the Blazers, you can't guard the 3-point line, and you miss 9 free throws, you're going to dig yourself a massive hole. And that's what happened in this one. Minus 17 on the glass, minus 6 at the free throw line, minus 11 in made threes, or, again, another way to say it, 33 points beyond the arc for the Wolves. And you add that all up, and you get another loss. You get a second consecutive loss to a team that, Portland's got a lot of talent. You could argue that without Karl-Anthony Towns, Portland has a roster that's just as good as the Wolves. But I didn't think that Portland would have a better record than the Wolves, much less a 2-game better record and the tiebreaker currently over the Wolves, sitting here 1/3 of the way through the season. And in this game, it wasn't anyone besides Dame. Like Jeremy Grant had 24 points, but like he did his thing, right? He was a 3-and-D guy, got to the line a bit more than you'd expect. Nurkic had a double-double, but like Anthony Simons only had 12 points on 13 shots. I mean, nobody on the bench. Shaedon Sharpe had a nice game. He had a couple of nice putbacks, but he was always 4 outside the arc. This was pretty much Dame and just enough from Jeremy Grant, Nurkic, and Sharpe. Like there's not that much more talent on the rest of this roster. So going back to what I said in the first segment, like Dame going nuts is certainly part of this. But the Wolves have to be able to slow somebody down on the perimeter. Somebody has to take ownership of that. Last year, like I haven't talked about Patrick Beverley on it. Like I don't want to join the the Wolves would be better if they had Pat Bev thing. Like to an extent, that's certainly true. This is the sort of game where he would have been like, I'm going to get in Lillard's jersey. I'm at least going to annoy him and make things more difficult. The Wolves don't have that guy. They don't have anyone that's doing that. Jordan McLaughlin would have given it a go, but I don't know that he would have been able to stop Lillard. Of course, he's still out with the calf issue. So I don't know. Disappointing second consecutive loss. We'll start studs and duds by talking about the player I'm most concerned with. I didn't get to it this segment. We'll do it next. As I do studs and duds, the player I'm most concerned with sitting here right now for the Wolves. First, though, let's talk about our friends at BetOnline. This episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season, which is about to start, plus basketball, both pro and college, and World Cup. We've got it all on betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can also find those at BetOnline as well. Like I said, getting into bowl season, plus college basketball, getting into conference play. The Gophers, of course, aren't great, but there's a lot of fun college basketball out there. There's some surprising teams in the top 10 right now. And, of course, the meat of the NBA schedule, that middle third of the schedule, is when it really starts to get good. Probably some trades upcoming. We'll talk about that on the show later this week. So there's tons of fun stuff at BetOnline. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, the Timberwolves player I'm most concerned about sitting here right now, 1/3 of the way through the season, is none other than Anthony Edwards. I want to spend a lot more time on Ant this week. This could be what's today? This is Tuesday's show. This West Coast games, man. This could be a Wednesday show conversation, as you know, we'll do the preview of Wolves Clippers. We haven't seen the Clippers in forever. But I think I'm going to focus a little bit on Ant. I want to talk specifically about him at the rim, scoring at the rim, because that has to be down. Like I need to pull all the numbers, but I think he's down at, like, I know he was earlier this season. It just feels like he's missing gimmies. There's not much really to like right now about Ant's game in terms of his consistency, or really, frankly, lack thereof. Marnie talked about this pretty extensively on the postcast that we did after the game. His asking for a foul while in the act of, shooting, like he's more concerned with that than finishing the play, expecting to get the foul call. Like Ant's not alone in that, so I don't want to kill him too much for that. But when you're struggling so much at the rim, then that you have to look at that. And Ant doesn't have the track record to be able to command some of that respect. Now, like, he played well in Portland on Saturday. I mean, he had 26.7 and 6, shot 50% from three. So, like, it's not, again, this isn't like sky is falling Ant time, but before that, Ant hadn't shot above 33% from three in a game since before Thanksgiving. That win over the Pacers. That was the last time Ant shot better than 30%, 33%, I should say, from three in a game, was Saturday. Now, he made his threes on Monday too, but he didn't do anything else. He missed at the rim. What was he? I think he was 3 of 3. Yeah, 3 of 3 outside the arc. But guess what? That means he was 3 of 13 inside the arc, 2 of 6 at the free throw line. It's the consistency thing. And like, I get it. He's 21, right? Again, this isn't a sky is falling Anthony Edwards conversation. This is, of all the players on the Wolves, like, we know that Rudy is Rudy. We know that the role players are the role players. Like, Jaden McDaniels needs some consistency too, but the Wolves aren't relying on Jaden McDaniels for 20 plus a game and efficient scoring and solid, his role, of course, is defense, but Ant has to play. He has to be a two-way player. With no Karl-Anthony Towns, you need more from Ant. D'Angelo Russell has stepped up. D'Angelo Russell has stepped up. We'll talk more about him in just a moment. Ant has not consistently. We need more from Anthony Edwards. I want to talk more about him Wednesday, so stay tuned for that, because I think the numbers could be pretty telling. So we'll start with duds, because why not? Ant is a dud. He had the worst individual plus minus on the Wolves. And if you listen to the show regularly, you know that I always provide the caveat that I think it's super noisy and not a great barometer all the time of how somebody's played. But sometimes it matches with the eye test. And Ant was a minus 25. No one else on the Wolves was worse than a minus 19. No starter was worse than a minus 15. And Ant was a minus 25. Had 17 points, but it took him 16 shots to do it. Thank goodness for those 3 threes, because he was 2 of 6 at the line. Like I said a minute ago, 3 of 13 on 2-point shots, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, only 2 rebounds for Ant. He does continue his streak of consecutive games with multiple steals. He's had at least 2 steals in every game going back to the loss to Golden State that Sunday after Thanksgiving on the 27th. So 2.5 weeks ago, pretty much. So, I mean, that for what it's worth, that streak continues for Ant. Other duds, I don't know. This may be a little unfair. I'm going to go Austin Rivers, and this is more, I guess, we'll call him the dud of Portland over the last couple games. He had basically a 0 stat line on Saturday. We saw more of the same on Monday in Portland in the same building. He did hit a corner 3, but otherwise, that was his only made shot. 1 of 4 in 14 minutes. No rebounds. Again, 1 assist, 1 steal, 3 fouls in 14 minutes. And I think he spends more time defensively complaining about illegal screens and trying to get offensive foul calls and all that stuff than he does actually defending. And maybe that's unfair over the body of work, but that's what I saw in these 2 games in Portland. I think the Wolves need more out of a veteran role player like Austin Rivers. He signed on to be a role player. They need more from him off the bench. Studs for this game for me, D'Angelo Russell was the Wolves' best player. There's no question about it. And I'm as hard on D'Lo as anybody when he doesn't play well. He's playing well right now. 23 points, 8 assists, 9 of 19 shooting. He was killing the drop coverage in the first half for Portland. And it was a pick your poison, right? They were trying to cover that Rudy role because Rudy hurt them a lot on Saturday with all the lobs the Wolves were getting up to Rudy. And credit Portland. Early in the game, they were denying those lobs. The Wolves weren't even really trying it consistently. Like they snuck a couple in there, but D'Lo was just taking what the defense gave him, and he was making the shots more often than not. He stopped making them as frequently in the second half, and the Wolves tried to force some more lobs to Rudy, leading to turnovers. We saw a couple from Ant. We saw one from D'Lo. I think Noel might have had one in the same, or maybe it was Kyle Anderson. One of those guys tried a lob to Rudy that got knocked away. So at any rate, credit Portland for that adjustment. But D'Lo played really well. And again, the first half offense was outstanding. He was countering those, the Lillard threes with his own 2s, which was not enough, but at least somebody was making shots consistently and playing well for the Wolves. Now, defensively, we need more from D'Lo. We know that. But at least he's competing, playing hard, which, like, sorry to say that matters given the context of the Wolves right now. 23 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block. 9 of 19 shooting, 3 made threes for D'Lo. I'm going to give Rudy a stud, too. He did I don't know. Maybe I should. He struggled defensively one-on-one at times in this game. When you give up 133 to Portland on the heels of what they give up on Saturday, 124 or something like that, you have to look at the guy who's supposed to be the defensive anchor. And there were some issues defensively for Rudy. I think he got caught in no man's land some. He got put on skates again when he got stuck on the perimeter, which isn't entirely his fault. He got beat one-on-one by Nurkic several times, by Eubanks a couple of times. I don't think he played that well defensively, but the Wolves' perimeter defense was so bad that I'm giving Rudy a partial pass here because he was the only guy competing on the glass. Nobody with more than 4 rebounds besides Rudy Gobert. 20 rebounds, 15 defensive, 5 offensive, and 8 of 13 shooting, 16 points for Rudy, 16 and 22 assists, a steal, no blocks. But I don't know. Trying to come up with 3 studs. Rudy's got to be one of them. The third one, you could go Naz Reid, you could go Jalen Noel. I'm going to split it between the 2 of them because each of those guys had things I didn't love. Like Naz, I think we needed a little bit more from him defensively, but not the only guy you could say that about. He had 10 and 4, perfect 4 of 4 shooting, made his only 3-point attempt. Jalen Noel, weirdly, this was a weird Jalen Noel game. He had 2 stretches where he was scoring every time he touched the ball. And then there was a stretch in the middle where it seemed like he just took a bunch of really terrible shots that didn't go in. And I guess maybe it's not that weird. That's kind of Jalen Noel in a nutshell, really, in one game. It's just usually it's one or the other, right? Usually it's, man, this guy's lights out. He could be the 6th man of the year. Or this guy's old Jamal Crawford and just is jacking shots up and has no business. He's not passing the ball, etc. This was all that in one game. But he kind of kept the Wolves in it in the second quarter when Portland scored 37 in the frame. It was just kind of extending their lead, but Noel was coming right back and scoring on Portland. He shot 7 of 12 from the field, 3 of 5 at the line. Missed his only 2 3-point attempts, had 3 rebounds, 2 assists. And I don't know, it was fine. It was a fine game for Jalen Noel. It's just, I don't know. The consistency wasn't there, but that's why we're splitting it. So we're going 2 studs and 2 half studs and 2 duds, and this was just a messy game. That's probably the best way to sum it up. Wednesday, I want to talk more about Anthony Edwards. I want to talk about his shots at the rim. I want to talk about the biggest issues in his game. Sitting here right now with no Karl-Anthony Towns, how important it is for Ant to play better than he's playing We're going to talk about that on Wednesday. We'll preview the Clippers matchup. LA won in Boston, and they're healthy. Kawhi and Paul George both played. We'll talk about that Wednesday as well, and we'll peek ahead what's upcoming the rest of the week. We'll do all that on Wednesday. Of course, the show's daily, Monday through Friday. A big thank you to those of you that do make Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. It's absolutely greatly appreciated. You can find the show everywhere. That includes YouTube, where if you watch on YouTube, please subscribe. Please like the video. Please comment below. If you listen on Apple, please leave us a review, comment. It's all greatly appreciated. It really is. You can also listen anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Roku app or the Amazon Fire TV app, any of the Locked On Minnesota shows, which, of course, Locked On Vikings, tough loss Sunday for the Vikings. The Twins made a signing on Monday. Correa is still out there. There's lots of Twins news. Locked On Gophers now that we're into bowl season, plus basketball for the Gophers. Locked On Wild, of course. So it's all there. Go to Locked On Sports Minnesota on the Roku app or the Amazon Fire TV app. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On T-Wolves and at Beecken with 2 B's, 2 E's, C-K-E-N. Of course, the Locked On Wolves podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. A big thank you once again for making us your first listen. And for your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.